Hey, this is Ginny, and this is my third episode of Bisaya in America. And today's topic is going to be about food, the difference between Filipino food and American food, and the cultural differences, and how I'm able to cope in America, living here for 7 years, and sometimes not eating rice every day. So that's an adjustment. Okay, so just a background. So Filipinos love food. Food is considered a love language in the Philippines. And I grew up around food. My grandmother was in the food business, and she ran, basically she was hired to feed factory workers. And I don't know how many years she was in that business, but that was her business. And I remember growing up, sometimes we would get free food, and we had a lot of food, and there were like people going in and out of her house because she had a lot of workers working for her, and she fed people 24 hours a day. So I grew up around food, and I grew up around delicious food. And that's just my upbringing, and I think that's a typical Filipino upbringing. It's just a lot of our culture is centered on food. We actually don't eat the same thing every day, so every day we have to have something different. And even in a meal, we have to have maybe vegetable and a piece of meat or any entree that's made of meat, pork, chicken, or anything like that, fish. So a typical Filipino table has a lot of food in it, and of course rice, and then there's a lot of soup. We love soup. So my grandmother, going back to my grandmother, she was such a good cook that people would actually borrow her from the other villages. We call the villages barrios in the Philippines. So people would actually borrow her and so that she would be able to cook for them. And she cooked food for dozens and dozens of people. And in fact, I saw a large cooking pot, and when I was growing up, it was like so huge. I think as a child, I think I could go in it, and it's so huge, and I could fit in it. And she could probably cook like a whole small pig or a big pig. It was that huge. The cooking pot was so huge. And that's just typical Filipino. We love to eat, we love to cook, and we have huge pots because we love to serve and feed people, and a lot of people. And in fact, if you are ever visiting the Philippines, like after the coronavirus, of course, or the pandemic, but when there's a feast, and usually it's around May, and there's a certain island called Bohol where the whole month of May you could eat for free. You just go, you don't even have to know the people. You can just go in their homes and or get invited into a stranger's home, and you can eat for free. And it's the whole month of May. It's just it's a feast. They call it fiesta, and it's just to celebrate the abundance that people have there. But culturally, we're very hospitable people. You'd be surprised. People will be willing to feed you even if you're a stranger. So and speaking of hospitality and generosity, so I remember when I went to visit my aunt, and this was in the province, and in the Philippines, a province is the next village, I think. I don't know. We call it the province, but it's actually just the mountainous region in the Philippines. Anyway, visited her, and I didn't announce myself. I didn't say like, "Oh, I'm gonna go over there and visit you." It was just, spontaneous thing. And she was so embarrassed she had nothing to feed me with because I was a guest. And in the Philippines, you are obligated to feed a guest. It's like unheard of. If you have nothing to feed your guest, it's really bad. I mean, for a Filipino. And I'm sure Filipinos who will listen to this will agree with me. So she actually, because she didn't have any food to serve me because I came there unannounced, she actually had to kill one of the chickens. So in the Philippines, we grow chickens in our backyards. And so she had a chicken that she was preparing for a special meal. Maybe she was thinking about, killing it and cooking it. But because I was a special guest, and I was a guest, I mean, nothing special about me, I guess. But since I was a guest, technically she had to feed me something. So she killed the chicken, and in an hour she had chicken stew. And I really had to eat it. I felt bad for the chicken, of course, but she insisted, and that's the culture there. You will insult a Filipino if you want to insult a Filipino. Do not eat their food, because we will literally feed you our last meal. Even if we're going hungry and we have a guest, we literally are obligated to feed them. And so that's what happened. So I felt so bad. I felt so bad for that chicken, but I had to eat the chicken and it became a stewed chicken in an hour, sad. It's a sad story, actually, if you think about it. So a Filipino is like a hobbit. So a hobbit is basically, I don't know if you guys watch The Lord of the Rings. So hobbits are small people. We're tiny people, and we eat 5 meals every day. So we eat breakfast, and after breakfast there's merienda, which is considered brunch probably here in America, or a snack. And after that we have lunch, and after that we have another merienda or lunch snack, after lunch snack, and then there's dinner, and after dinner there's another snack. So and to Americans, when we eat sandwiches and pizza, we consider that a snack. We don't consider that as a main meal. But here in America, I had to adjust because that's considered a meal. I'm like, how is this a meal? There's no rice. So we are rice eaters. So the food in the Philippines is diverse because we have islands. But the north, they eat chicken, pork, beef, and they eat mostly meat there. But if you live in an island, we eat mostly fish, seafood, and we actually eat seaweed. And I found out that the people in the north, in Luzon and Manila and the northern parts of the Philippines, they actually don't eat seaweed, and they were actually like wondering why we fed them seaweed. We had guests and they were like, what is this? When we said, that's seaweed. You guys don't eat seaweed over there? And apparently they don't really eat seaweed. And I'm talking about the northern part of the Philippines. So we have a lot of barbecues. And in my island, Cebu, we are actually known for our roast pig. It's called lechon, and Anthony Bourdain swears by it. And he said he visited the island years ago, and he said that it was the best pork he's ever tasted in his life. And I agree with him. It is, to those who are non-pork eaters, I'm sure you're not going to get this, but to those that are pork eaters and those that know about the famed Cebu lechon, so we actually are known for our lechon, our pork. So to people that don't know Anthony Bourdain, so he's a famous celebrity cook and chef, and he goes around the world and he tastes the food in different regions of the world. And he has basically announced that Cebu is known for the best roast pork ever, and I agree with him. It's like literally like crack cocaine. So I don't know I've never tried crack cocaine, but based on their description that it's really addictive, it really is. It's our lechon, our famed roast pork in Cebu is actually, it's actually like very addictive. So the thing is, the Philippines, we like to eat a lot, and it's really part of our culture. And what I found strange when I went to, or when I came to America, and I'm living in America right now. I've been here for 7 years, and the strange thing that I had to adjust with is that when Americans eat, they don't invite you. And in the Philippines, it's like when someone is eating and there's someone that comes in, whether a guest or just a friend that pops in, and then you are eating, you are obliged or obligated to ask them, have you eaten yet? And let's eat. So eating is actually part of, it's like a greeting for us. It's like, have you eaten yet? Do you want to eat? Or are you hungry? So it's part of our culture. But in the Philippines, it's like no one even asks, not in the Philippines, but in America, no one asks you if you're hungry. It's like, oh, okay, they're not going to invite me, and they're eating. They're obviously eating. Everybody's eating, and no one's going to invite me. So that was a culture shock for me, because Filipinos, like, they have to say, have you eaten yet? You join us. Let's eat. And another thing that I found that is strange in America, and coming from a culture of being food-centric, is that when you visit someone's house or home, they don't actually feed you unless it's a party. But if you go to someone's home here in America, they're not going to feed you anything unless, it's a potluck, or you're there specifically to eat food if there's a gathering or a party. But if you're just going to visit, they're not going to feed you. They're not going to say like, hey, let's go eat. It's more like, unless you're invited specifically for dinner, it's in the Philippines, it's like when you visit someone's home, it's like automatically, hey, you have to eat, or like, eat this, or something like that. It's always food first, it's not, how are you? It's like, have you eaten yet? So Filipinos will probably get this, And the thing I noticed that's very strange in America is that Americans are, or most Americans that I've met and have come to know and have encountered, is that they're very picky about the foods that they eat. They actually look at certain foods with suspicion, and there are open-minded Americans for sure, but it's like when it smells funny, they're going to be a little suspicious, and when it has a strange texture, they're like probably going to get like suspicious and say, no, I'm not going to eat that. Or especially, I don't know, as an Asian, as a Filipino, we eat what other cultures would consider stinky food, and Americans can't handle that. They can't handle the fish, the strong fish smell. They can't handle like certain flavors or something, like especially the texture, I think, which is kind of strange, because I never really thought that texture was going to be part of or a factor in eating, because for me it's just Filipinos, we eat different textures. We eat intestines, we eat like organs and stuff like that. So it's going to be mushy, it's going to be squishy, and we eat seafood. I come from an island where I love seafood, so it's like to those that don't like okra because it's sticky, it's a little gummy. So we love that as Filipinos. We eat gummy, sticky, slimy food, smelly food, if you like to call that. But Americans, they're very suspicious, and they actually don't like to eat food with a face in it, like fish. The fish head has to be cut. The pork I'm sure it's going to freak people out, or most Americans out, if they see a pork with a head or something. And most Americans, they don't eat weird body parts like the feet or the hooves. And in the Philippines, we eat oxtail. We eat the pig's feet and the chicken feet and other parts. Blood. Oh, blood. That one is, a typical American will probably faint when they see that we eat, or Filipinos eat blood stew. So that would freak them out, but it's really good. And my grandmother used to make the best one. It's really good. And what I found that being or living here in America for 7 years is that I kind of miss like authentic Chinese cuisine. The Philippines is known, the Chinese have integrated with society and stuff, so we actually have authentic Chinese food there. And here it's Americanized food, and Americans love to do that. They do the Tex-Mex, which is Mexican food, but not really. It's Mexican, it's Americanized version of Mexican food, which most Mexicans will not recognize. And even the Chinese food is Chinese food that has been Americanized, that most Chinese wouldn't even consider as Chinese food. It's the same with, I don't know, but yeah, even Italian American food, based on the feedback from real Italians. So the Italian food in America has been Americanized as well, and it's not really Italian food. I mean, it's sort of Italian food, but not really. I'm sure there's Italian restaurants that are really authentic. Same with Japanese American food. It's like their sushi is actually not available in Japan, and I've seen videos where Japanese were like, what is that? They don't recognize the Philadelphia roll with the cream cheese. They don't recognize the shaggy dog roll or the dragon boat or whatever, the hot and spicy roll, sushis, and it's been Americanized. But there's also Japanese food here that's the raw fish, the sashimi. So that one, I guess it's pretty much the same in Japan. I think my brother and sister can probably say something about this, because I've never been to Japan yet. So yeah, that's what I found about America. It has diversity, but it tends to Americanize everything. Everything has to be suited to Americans' taste, which I find like the diversity thing is somehow muted down, but it's still better than not having that diversity and different cuisines. It's just that it's changed and it's not really the authentic one. And luckily though, Filipino food in America, it actually stays the same, but sadly not many Americans, I have yet to find, like, usually there's one or two Americans that you can really tell that they're white and they go in, or even the blacks, they go in and eat Filipino food, but I'm sure they've been introduced to it because they know someone who's Filipino or are married to one, or they have friends that are Filipino and they've been introduced to the cuisine. But normally you don't really find that at all, or typically you don't really find Americans eat like authentic Filipino food. And I think the most they can handle, is the lumpia, which is the egg roll. And I think that's not as weird to them as the sinigang and the dugo or dinuguan. Sinigang is sour soup, so I don't think Americans like sour soup. That would just freak them out. And dinuguan, of course, is blood stew. So yeah, it is tasty, and it may be weird to most Americans, but that's That's Philippine cuisine for you. And I find that as a Filipino, I'm more open to trying out other foods. And someone actually told me, like, oh, like you're trying everything out. Like, and this is an American, and she said, oh, I think I've met someone like you, another Filipino, and she ate all the food. Like, she tasted each one. And that's a typical Filipino. We like to maybe I'll try this one, I'll try that one. We're more open-minded to food. And I find that I have tried an authentic Mexican taco, and it's made of the stomach and intestines, and I liked it, and to most Americans that would just gross them out. But yeah, as a Filipino, I'm more open-minded to the other cuisines because I'm used to it. I'm used to the flavors, and different regions in the Philippines have different tastes. Like there's parts in the Philippines where they like more coconut in their food, and then they like spicy. The spicier the better, but being exposed to that, I just love all types of flavors, and I really am open to trying out a different cuisine. And in fact, I actually ate at an authentic Indian restaurant just recently. It was yesterday. So an Indian friend took me, and he introduced me to the authentic Indian cuisine, and I loved it, because being Filipino, we love food. We love to try new things, and I just don't want to limit myself to the regular pizza or spaghetti, the pasta, the barbecue, and there has to be more to life than that. So I'm very open-minded. But yeah, this is just my take, and this is my observation about the food in America and the food in the Philippines, and how culturally there's just such a huge difference. And if only Americans embraced, or most Americans embraced, other cultures, and then other flavors as well. If they were more open-minded than that, and not Americanize everything, because that's food is part of culture. And that you're really missing the culture, why people eat pig's blood or something like that. It's part of the culture. It's part of the history of a nation and stuff. That's why I love Anthony Bourdain. Actually, for an American, he was really open-minded, and I literally would have loved to be in his shoes. And we need more Anthony Bourdains out there in the world, and I wouldn't mind stepping in one of these days. Who knows, and that has been the that's the episode. And if you're a Filipino, a Bisaya listening to this, or Filipino Tagalog, you could be Tagalog or from wherever in the Philippines, and if you're listening to this, what is your favorite new cuisine that's not the Filipino cuisine? What is the thing that you tried that's not Filipino food that you loved, that you were introduced here in America? For me, let's say, for example, for me, it's bagels and lox. Like, literally, my Jewish clients, introduced me to lox, and I was just hooked. I lived in New York, New Jersey, and I was just like, I would look for it. I'm obsessed with bagels now. And that was something I was introduced here in America that I loved, And so what is your new thing that got introduced here in America? So if you're a Filipino, what new food have you tried out that you just absolutely love and have, become your new favorite? And if you're an American listening to this, or even if you're not a non-American, do write me and then send me your feedback and your experience. And if you've tried Filipino food, if you like it, if you don't like it, if you're freaked out by it, and email me at homeofgenie@gmail.com. So I'll leave the link to my website as well, www.homeofgenie.com. So I'm actually an author, and I write romantic comedies, political satire. I have 3 books, or upcoming 3rd book in the series. So in total I have 5 books on Amazon, and it's like novels, romantic comedy, romance, funny, entertaining. And if you are into those things, check it out. And if not, go tell your friends who are into those things. And yeah, that's how you can support me. And thank you very much. And this has been an episode of Bisaya in America. Thank you very much.